Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to Sleepy Science Teller, a gentle space where science meets serenity and curiosity drifts quietly into calm. Tonight, we'll travel far, beyond lifetimes, beyond history. We'll drift through millions of years to witness one of nature's most patient miracles, the making of mountains, those vast, silent guardians that touch the sky, each one built slowly by the steady hand of Earth itself. So close your eyes, take a deep breath before we start our journey. Tell me, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it in your corner of the earth? I love imagining all of us drifting together under the same sky, each in our own peaceful place. If you enjoy relaxing with these bedtime discoveries, please softly tap the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can join me again on more quiet adventures through time and science. Beneath your feet, even now, the ground that feels so steady, so unchanging, is quietly alive. The earth is not still. It never has been. If you could see beneath the surface, past the soil, the rocks, and the roots, you'd find a world in motion, a slow, patient, rhythmic movement that has been going on for billions of years. The earth's heart beats not with blood, but with heat. At its very center lies the core, a sphere of molten iron and nickel, glowing, swirling, and spinning faster than the planet itself. This hidden fire is the engine that drives everything above. It powers volcanoes, shapes continents, builds mountains, and whispers to the surface through earthquakes and shifting land. Sometimes it's easy to think of our planet as a rock, a cold, lifeless globe drifting silently through space. But deep inside it breathes. The mantle, a thick layer of hot, solid rock that flows slowly like thick honey, acts like the Earth's lungs. It rises, falls, circulates in great currents called convection cells. These currents push the surface from below, like hands beneath a rug, making it wrinkle, fold, and shift. Over time, those invisible movements give birth to continents, and later to mountains. The restless heart of Earth beats with unimaginable patience. Each throb of molten energy takes thousands of years to show its mark, but with enough time, those marks become rivers, ridges, and mountain ranges that reshape the face of the world. Let's journey now, deep beneath the crust, to the boundary between what we see and what lies hidden. Here, temperatures soar to thousands of degrees, and pressures crush everything into dense, glowing matter. The mantle moves slowly, but relentlessly. Imagine the entire surface of the earth, floating on that soft, molten sea, not solidly anchored, but drifting. Over millions of years, these floating pieces, tectonic plates, are carried by that hidden motion. This endless cycle is like a symphony, a creation and destruction. As one part of the mantle rises, another sinks. Old crust is swallowed, and new crust is born. Continents wander, oceans open and close, and every so often, the earth reshapes itself completely. It's almost as if the planet dreams. Long, slow dreams that span millions of years. In those dreams, mountains rise, volcanoes awaken, and entire landscapes are transformed. Scientists have studied this restless system for centuries, but the truth remains humbling. The earth is always in motion, always changing, always alive. Somewhere beneath your feet, perhaps even right now, a new mountain is beginning its story. its first small tremor forming deep within the mantle, where rock begins to flow and pressure begins to build. It may take 10 million years before it ever reaches the light, but it will. And when it does, it will stand tall, silent, majestic, a monument to the Earth's living heart. Over time, the Earth's heart cools, only to warm again. Its energy pulses outward, through cracks and fissures, through molten rivers beneath the crust. Each pulse sets in motion another chain of events. Sometimes that pulse lifts entire regions upward. A continent heaves, an ocean floor spreads apart, and somewhere far above, a new peak slowly begins to form. Other times, the same pulse tears a world apart, splitting lands, creating valleys, opening deep scars in the surface. From a distance, these changes are invisible, but in the language of geology, they speak of time on a scale almost beyond comprehension. Imagine mountains rising where there were once seas. Imagine oceans swallowing plains. Imagine forests, deserts, and cities, all temporary guests, resting on a world that moves beneath them, inch by inch, year by year. It is this quiet motion that keeps the earth alive. Without it, our world would be still, a dead, frozen sphere, like the moon. But because it moves, it breathes. Because it shifts, it renews itself. Every mountain, every valley, every island is a visible heartbeat of this living planet. When you stand at the foot of a mountain or feel the faint tremor of an earthquake, you're hearing the whisper of that restless heart. You're feeling the same forces that have shaped Earth since the beginning of time. And though its rhythm is slow, its power is endless. So tonight, as you close your eyes and imagine the earth beneath you, remember that even in stillness, it moves. Even in silence, it speaks. The restless heart of earth beats on softly forever. If you could peel back the surface of the earth, as though it were a painted shell, you would see something extraordinary beneath. Our planet's crust, the ground that feels so steady beneath your feet, isn't one unbroken piece. It's made of vast sections, gigantic puzzle pieces, called tectonic plates. These plates fit together, not perfectly, but beautifully, like an ancient mosaic, drifting slowly over the molten sea of the mantle below. Some of these plates are enormous, covering entire oceans or continents. The Pacific Plate stretches for thousands of miles, while the Eurasian Plate cradles mountains, deserts, and valleys across half the globe. But despite their size, these plates move constantly, not quickly, not violently, but with the quiet persistence of time. A few centimeters each year, barely the length of your fingernail. And yet, those tiny movements change everything. When one plate slides beneath another, mountains rise. When they drift apart, new ocean floors form. When they grind past each other, the earth shivers, and earthquakes ripple through the crust like whispers from below. The entire planet is a living puzzle, forever rearranging itself, piece by piece, breath by breath. This grand motion is known as plate tectonics. It's one of the most beautiful truths of geology, that our world, even in silence, is never truly still. To understand why the plates move, we must journey deeper into the glowing, molten heart of the planet. The mantle, that vast layer beneath the crust, is not liquid, but it flows very slowly under immense heat and pressure. It moves like warm wax, soft and thick, rising and sinking in vast circular currents. These currents are called mantle convection. They are driven by the heat escaping from the core, the same ancient heat left over from Earth's creation. As the mantle moves, it carries the plates along its surface, just like ice drifting on a slow, warm river where the currents rise. Plates are pushed apart. New crust forms as molten rock seeps up and cools into solid stone. This happens along the great mid-ocean ridges, like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a vast underwater mountain chain, where the ocean floor slowly spreads. Where the currents sink, the opposite happens. Old crust is drawn downward into deep ocean trenches and melted once again into the mantle. This is called subduction. It's a cycle as old as the planet itself, a slow, endless recycling of stone. And it's not random. Each plate dances in a careful rhythm with its neighbors. Some pull away, some collide, some slide past. Every motion leaves a trace, a scar on the surface, a ripple in the crust, a clue for us to read. Through this invisible dance, the face of the earth changes shape. Continents drift across the globe, sometimes coming together, sometimes breaking apart. And in each movement, the story of the mountains begins. Millions of years ago, the world looked very different. All the continents we know today, Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas, Australia, and Antarctica, were once joined together in one immense supercontinent called Pangaea. It was a single vast landmass, surrounded by a single global ocean. But beneath Pangaea, the mantle stirred restlessly. Currents rose and fell, pressing against the great continental plate above. Cracks began to form, like lines in drying clay. And slowly, piece by piece, Pangaea began to drift apart. The continents started their slow journeys across the planet's surface, carried gently on the moving plates below. What began as a single world became many. The Atlantic Ocean opened, the Himalayas began to rise, and the familiar outlines of our modern world slowly took shape. It took millions of years, but to the Earth, it was just a sigh. Even now, the continents are still moving. North America drifts westward. Africa slides north. Australia journeys ever closer to Asia. And though we can't feel it, the ground beneath us is flowing like a slow, deep river. If you stood in the same spot for 100 million years, you'd find yourself on another continent entirely. That is how alive, how fluid our planet truly is. Each step we take, each mountain we climb, each ocean we cross, exists because the plates beneath us move slowly, patiently, endlessly. They are the hidden gears of our planet's heart, the silent architects of landscapes, the unseen sculptors of the mountains yet to come. And though they move too slowly for us to see, they're always working, building the future world, one imperceptible inch at a time. So as you rest and breathe deeply, remember this gentle truth. The ground beneath you, the solid earth you trust, is quietly drifting through eternity, calmly, slowly, changing shape beneath the stars. The moving plates beneath us carry the story of every mountain, every ocean, and every life that will ever be. Imagine the surface of the earth as an ancient, drifting ocean of land, each continent floating slowly upon molten waves deep below. They move so gently that in a human lifetime, the distance is barely a few inches, and yet, across millions of years, those inches become thousands of miles. Now, picture two massive continents approaching one another. They move silently, without rush, but their meeting will reshape the face of the world. This is what happens when continents collide. When two oceanic plates meet, one often sinks beneath the other, disappearing into the mantle's depths. But when two continental plates collide, neither can sink. They are too light, too buoyant, made of rock that floats upon the mantle like wood upon water. And so, instead of one diving beneath the other, they press together, their edges crumble, their crust folds, and the land begins to rise. From the slow, unstoppable pressure, mountains are born. The crust thickens, pushing upward in wrinkles and folds. Layer upon layer of ancient rock, once buried deep below, is lifted toward the sunlight for the first time in millions of years. Each ridge, each peak, is a frozen moment of that immense, patient collision. This is the quiet art of creation, played out over epochs, in the slow language of stone. Let's step into a true story, one still unfolding beneath our feet. Around 50 million years ago, a landmass the size of modern-day Australia began drifting northward across the sea. That land was the Indian subcontinent. It had once been part of the southern supercontinent, Gondwana, and over time it broke away, sailing slowly across the teethless ocean, drawn by invisible forces deep below. For tens of millions of years, the Indian plate journeyed north, carrying forests, rivers, and life across an endless sea. And then it met Asia. When the two collided, the crust had nowhere to go but upward. The seafloor between them buckled and folded, pushing rocks skyward, and in time forming the highest mountains on earth, the Himalayas. Even now, the Indian plate continues to push into Asia, a few centimeters each year, and the Himalayas still rise. Each passing year they grow taller, their slopes shifting and stretching beneath layers of ice and snow. To us, it seems they're still and eternal, but in truth they are moving, breathing, changing. When you stand before the Himalayas, you are standing at the meeting point of worlds. Beneath the snow and stone, the very crust of the earth is folding upon itself. And though the movement is invisible, its power is endless. The same forces that raised Everest once rippled through the crust below the oceans, and one day may form mountains far beyond our imagination. The Himalayas are more than just mountains. They are an ancient conversation between two continents, still continuing to this very day. When continents collide, the world changes in silence. Forests shift, rivers are rerouted, and the air itself cools as high peaks begin to rise and catch the passing clouds. The meeting of continents doesn't just sculpt stone, it reshapes climate, life, and even the flow of time itself. As new mountains rise, winds change direction, rain falls in new patterns, deserts bloom where once there were forests, and new ecosystems find a place to grow. This slow dance of the continents is one of the greatest forces of transformation on Earth. The Alps in Europe, the Andes in South America, the Rockies in North America, each of these majestic ranges was born from the same patient process of collision. Every fold in their ridges tells a story of compression and release. Every layer of rock is a page in Earth's long, quiet diary. If you could listen closely enough, you might hear it, the deep, rumbling murmur of continents pushing together, their slow motion resonating through stone. It's a reminder that creation and destruction are never truly separate. Every mountain that rises is balanced by valleys that sink. Every uplifted ridge comes from another piece of the earth, pressed down in return. It's harmony, not chaos, that shapes the planet. So when continents collide, they are not fighting, they are dancing. A slow, patient, timeless dance that sculpts beauty from pressure and silence from motion. One day, long after our time, these continents may separate again. The mountains they built will erode into the sea, and the cycle will begin anew. The earth will never stop moving. It doesn't rush. It doesn't hurry. It only flows. So, as you rest tonight, imagine those massive plates beneath the surface, drifting gently, slowly, forever, and know that even the greatest forces in the universe move softly. Imagine the surface of our planet as a vast, flexible skin, not solid and rigid as it may seem, but alive, responsive, breathing with the heat and motion beneath. When immense pressures rise from the depths, when two continents press together, or a plate slides under another, the earth does something remarkable. It bends. Instead of shattering instantly, its rocky layers fold like soft fabric, wrinkling slowly over millions of years. These folds become mountains, deep beneath your feet. The crust is layered like sheets of paper, each one formed from ancient seabeds, lava flows, and the dust of forgotten worlds. When those layers meet pressure, they begin to curl and curve, forming gentle waves in the rock, first small, then vast and mighty. Over time, those waves rise higher, pushed ever upward by forces far below. Peaks emerge, ridges stretch toward the sky, and valleys dip softly between them. The graceful shapes of what we call fold mountains. These are the mountains of patience, born not from sudden eruption, but from the slow poetry of movement. The Himalayas, the Alps, the Andes, the Rockies, all owe their towering beauty to this quiet bending. Each ripple in their rock marks a moment when the earth chose to yield, not break, and that is the secret of their strength. Let's journey deep inside a fold mountain. If we could peel back its layers, we'd see time itself compressed into stone. At the bottom, you'd find the oldest rocks, sediments once lying at the floor of ancient seas. Above them, you'd see newer layers, each one a different story of Earth's evolution. When immense pressure builds, perhaps as two plates collide, or as the crust thickens, these layers don't simply pile up. They twist, arch, and dip, forming shapes geologists call anticlines and synclines. An anticline is a crest, a fold that arches upward like the curve of a wave. A syncline is its opposite, a trough, where the rock dips downward in a graceful curve. Together, these folds create the sweeping rhythmic forms that ripple across entire mountain ranges. If you were to touch the walls of a folded valley, you'd be touching rocks that were once deep beneath the sea. Fossils of coral and shells can be found high above the clouds, proof that what is now mountain was once ocean floor. It's humbling to think that the very stones beneath your feet have traveled from darkness to light, from seabed to skyline. Each layer tells a story of pressure, of movement, of transformation. The earth records its history, not in ink, but in the texture of stone. And when those stones bend, they whisper the oldest lullaby of all, that strength and beauty can come from yielding to change. Over millions of years, the folded crust thickens and rises, creating entire chains of mountains. that span continents. But the story doesn't end there. The process of folding never truly stops. The mountains we see today, sharp, proud, and immense, are just one fleeting moment in a much longer rhythm. Wind, rain, and ice begin their quiet work of shaping and softening. Peaks crumble, valleys widen. The once jagged fold becomes smooth and rounded. But beneath it all, deep in the mantle, pressure is always building anew. Somewhere else on Earth, new folds are beginning, slowly, silently, unnoticed by the creatures that walk above them. It's a reminder that creation and erosion are not opposites, but partners in the same endless cycle. Even as one mountain wears away, another begins to rise. Even as one fold relaxes, another tightens in the deep. In this quiet exchange, the earth finds balance, and there's something deeply human about that. We, too, are shaped by pressure, folded by time and experience. We, too, find our strength in the ways we bend without breaking. Fold mountains stand as monuments to that truth. They remind us that gentleness is not weakness, and that patience can carve beauty greater than any storm. So, when you next look at a mountain ridge, imagine the soft hands of time shaping it, layer by layer, breath by breath, fold by fold, and let it remind you that even the hardest stone was once part of a quiet, flowing rhythm beneath an ancient sea, far below the surface we walk upon. Beneath layers of cool rock and silent stone, there lies a hidden ocean, not of water, but of molten rock, flowing in eternal rhythm. This is the mantle, a sea of slow, glowing magma, pressing softly against the crust above. Most of the time, it stays deep and unseen, its heat felt only through the slow movement of continents. But sometimes, the pressure builds too much. A weakness forms, a crack, a vent, a door to the surface. And through that door, the earth exhales. When magma escapes, it bursts forth as lava, liquid fire meeting the open air. It may roar, or it may flow silently, but either way, a mountain is born. These fiery mountains, volcanoes, are not simply destroyers. They are creators, recycling the earth from within. Each eruption reshapes the land, building layers of new rock, turning barren plains into ridges, and giving birth to islands that rise from the sea. Hawaii, Iceland, Japan, each owes its life to the patient, passionate heart of a volcano. Even the air we breathe and the soil that feeds our forests carry traces of volcanic gifts. When you see a volcano in the distance, think not of chaos, but of renewal. It is the earth's way of breathing out, releasing what it can no longer hold inside. It's the sigh of a planet in motion. Volcanoes wear many faces, some fierce, some gentle, each telling a different story of creation. There are shield volcanoes, broad, sloping, and calm. Their lava flows easily, spreading layer upon layer, until wide, soft mountains rise, like those of Hawaii's Mauna Loa. Then there are composite volcanoes, or stratovolcanoes, the tall, majestic ones we often picture. Their sides are steep, their eruptions powerful, their presence awe-inspiring. Mount Fuji in Japan, Mount St. Helens in America, Mount Etna in Italy, each one a masterpiece of power and patience. There are also cinder cones, small, sharp, built from ash and stone that fall like rain after eruptions. They rise quickly, but fade with time. A fleeting burst of energy in Earth's long story. Some volcanoes lie hidden beneath the oceans, erupting quietly, forming underwater mountains, and entire island chains that stretch for thousands of miles. Even now, deep under the Pacific, new peaks are forming, invisible to us, yet alive, growing silently with every heartbeat of the earth. Volcanoes remind us that our world is still young, still changing, still learning how to breathe. Their eruptions, though fierce, are part of a gentle rhythm that spans eternity. Each one ends not in destruction, but in transformation. From lava flows come fertile soils, lush forests, and the rebirth of life. The same fire that destroys creates again, and perhaps that's how all true creation works. Once a volcano has given its breath to the world, it begins to sleep. The lava cools, the air grows quiet again, the smoke fades into mist, and what remains is a mountain, a monument to the balance between fury and peace. Some volcanoes rest for centuries, their chambers sealed, their slopes covered in green forests. People live upon their sides, planting crops in the rich soil left behind by ash and minerals. To live beside a volcano is to live beside a sleeping giant, one that may one day wake again. But even in its slumber, it watches over the land, silently shaping weather, soil, and life. The great ring of volcanoes around the Pacific Ocean is called the Ring of Fire. It is the heartbeat of our planet, where plates meet, melt, and remake themselves endlessly. It's a place where the earth dreams in molten color, creating and erasing shapes, like a painter who never tires of the canvas. And though eruptions can be violent, they remind us of something profound. That creation is not always calm. Sometimes, beauty is born from pressure and flame. Every mountain of fire that cools into stone is a testament to endurance, to the way energy becomes stillness and chaos becomes form. So next time you see a mountain that once burned, remember the fire that shaped it. Remember that beneath even the quietest soil, the world is alive, breathing slowly, dreaming its molten dreams. And as you drift into rest tonight, let that thought cradle you, that from fire comes peace, and from the heart of chaos, a mountain is born. Mountains are born in violence, folded, pushed, or erupted into being. But once they rise, their greatest transformation begins not with fire, but with patience. Time becomes the sculptor. A single mountain can live for hundreds of millions of years, and in that time, it will change more than any creature ever could. Rain begins the process. Tiny droplets fall upon stone, sliding through cracks, freezing, thawing, breaking apart what once seemed unbreakable. The wind whispers across the peaks, carrying dust and sand like soft fingers, polishing the sharp edges until they gleam smooth and round. Rivers carve deep gashes through valleys, cutting their way through layers of rock, revealing the stories hidden within. Each drop of water, each gust of wind, each frost that forms in the night plays a part in reshaping these giants. But none of it happens quickly. It takes centuries for a single valley to deepen, millennia for a ridge to soften, and eons for a mountain to fade away completely. To time, mountains are as fragile as dreams. To us, they seem eternal. And yet, in the eyes of the universe, they are fleeting sculptures, temporary brushstrokes in an endless painting. When we look at a mountain, we are not seeing something still. We are witnessing movement so slow, so quiet, that our eyes cannot perceive it. Time never stops its work. It shapes everything it touches, gently, endlessly, beautifully. Imagine standing upon an ancient mountain, one that once towered higher than any on earth. Now its peaks are worn, its slopes softened by the rhythm of time. If you were to slice through its heart, you'd see the layers of its story. Each layer tells an age long past, a time when the mountain was young, when glaciers cut through its ridges, when rivers ran wild, or when volcanic ash settled softly on its face. Geologists read these stories like pages in a book. They find fossils deep within the rock, shells from vanished seas, imprints of leaves from forests long gone, ashes from eruptions that ended before humanity began. Even in decay, a mountain teaches. Its erosion feeds rivers with minerals. Those rivers nourish plains, and those plains give birth to life. In this way, a mountain never truly dies. It transforms. Its dust becomes soil. Its stones become sand. Its essence becomes part of the cycle that sustains everything. Through the patient art of time, the rough becomes smooth, the tall becomes humble, the hard becomes soft. Every mountain that exists today has worn 1,000 faces. Each face was sculpted by years we cannot count, by forces we cannot see. When we touch a mountain's surface, we are touching millions of years of change, compressed into a single moment. Isn't that remarkable? To feel time itself under your fingertips? Time and stone have been speaking to one another since the earth first cooled. Stone resists, hard, proud, unmoving. But time never argues. It simply continues, softly, persistently, like water finding its path. The dialogue between them is endless. Stone says, I will endure. Time answers, I will shape you. And in their dance, beauty is born. This is how cliffs become gentle hills, how jagged ridges turn into rolling landscapes, how mountains become memories beneath our feet. Even now, as you listen, some distant peak is crumbling grain by grain. A single pebble loosens, rolls down a slope, and joins a river. That river carries it away, smoothing it into a rounded stone. In time, that stone will become sand, and that sand, perhaps one day, will be pressed again into rock, lifted once more into a mountain. The circle continues. It's humbling to realize that what seems eternal is only passing through. Mountains rise, mountains fall, but the essence of their being, the minerals, the dust, the memories, remain forever in motion. So when you gaze at a distant peak, you're not seeing something frozen in time. You're watching time itself, expressed through stone. The shaping touch of time is the gentlest artist the universe has ever known. And through its endless patience, the world remains ever new, ever soft, ever beautiful. Long after mountains rise from the earth's deep heart, they meet another kind of power, not molten, not fiery, but cold, patient, and impossibly strong. Ice. Glaciers are rivers of frozen time. They begin as snow, falling gently, layer after layer, upon high peaks and polar lands. Over centuries, that snow compacts beneath its own weight. Flakes fuse into ice, and ice begins to move. It may seem still, silent, and unmoving to human eyes, but a glacier is alive. It flows ever so slowly, creeping down valleys, grinding against stone, shaping everything it touches. As it moves, It carries with it fragments of rock, stones, gravel, and boulders caught within its frozen body. These fragments act like sandpaper, scraping, polishing, and carving the landscape below. Over thousands of years, the glacier sculpts vast valleys, smooth, deep, and curved like the letter U. It leaves behind cliffs, ridges, and shimmering lakes where once it was only rock. This slow carving is one of the greatest acts of artistry the planet has ever known. When you see a glacial valley, know that you are looking at a masterpiece, crafted not by hands, but by time and ice, moving together in silent grace. There have been many ages of ice, when great glaciers covered much of the earth. They came like slow-moving blankets, covering mountains, grinding forests into plains, and sculpting continents themselves. The last great ice age ended only 12,000 years ago, a brief moment in geological time. Back then, glaciers stretched from the poles deep into what are now temperate lands. They carved the Great Lakes of North America, the fjords of Norway, the valleys of the Alps, and the soft rolling hills of northern Europe. When those glaciers finally melted, they left behind the world we know today, a world of rivers, lakes, fertile valleys, and gentle slopes. The ground beneath your feet may once have been beneath a mile of solid ice. The hills near your home may have been sculpted by a glacier's slow retreat. Even now, some glaciers remain. In the Himalayas, in the Andes, in the Arctic and Antarctic, they continue their patient work, carving, shifting, whispering through time. Scientists call glaciers agents of erosion, but perhaps it's more fitting to call them artists of change. For though they grind and crush, their touch creates beauty, beauty that lasts for ages. And just as time softens mountains, ice gives them their final form, a shape both strong and serene. If you could stand upon a glacier, you'd hear almost nothing, just a faint crack of ice shifting underfoot, the quiet drip of meltwater beneath, and the endless hush of wind across the surface. It's a soundless world, and yet full of movement. Every inch of a glacier is in motion. It stretches, compresses, slides, and as it moves, it breathes, expelling tiny pockets of ancient air, trapped for thousands of years. Some scientists have studied that air, unlocking secrets of Earth's past climates, traces of time frozen in crystal form. The ice remembers. It remembers the world before us, the forests that grew where deserts now lie, the animals that roamed before humans walked the earth. It holds those memories quietly, layer upon layer, deep within its frozen heart. When glaciers retreat, they release not just water, but history. They feed rivers, fill lakes, and awaken new life in valleys below. And yet, as they melt, they remind us of the delicate balance of our world, how easily warmth can unmake what cold once created. The glaciers are storytellers, but their language is silence. They carve in whispers, they shape in stillness, and they endure beyond sight or sound. When we look at a mountain carved by ice, we're not just seeing rock and snow, we're seeing patience made visible. The glacier moves too slowly to notice, but in its unhurried way, it has reshaped the face of the earth. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. That true change doesn't shout. It moves quietly, steadily, and with purpose. So tonight, as you rest, imagine that you are lying upon an ancient glacier. Beneath you, the frozen breath of time. Around you, the soft murmur of a patient world, still sculpting itself. Even now, if you stand upon a mountaintop, close your eyes, and listen, you'll hear it, a constant voice that never rests. The wind, to us, it feels gentle, a cool touch upon the skin, but to the mountains, it is an artist, forever shaping, forever changing. Each gust that brushes against a rock, each storm that howls across the peaks, carries with it tiny grains of dust and sand. Those grains, though small, are countless, and together they carve, over centuries. They smooth sharp ridges, polish the sides of cliffs, and sculpt strange, elegant shapes from the hardest stone. Wind erosion is subtle, invisible from day to day, yet unstoppable across ages. It is one of the quietest forces on earth, and one of the most persistent. In deserts, you can see its work most clearly. There, the wind sculpts entire landscapes, arches, towers, and dunes that stretch like waves across an endless sea of sand. But even high among the snowy peaks, the wind is at work, chiseling the stone, wearing it smooth, carrying fragments away like whispers lost in time. No sound of hammer or chisel, only the patient touch of air. And yet, given enough years, the wind can do what even water cannot. It can erase mountains. This is how the earth breathes, through movement, through motion, through the invisible hands of the wind that never sleeps. But the wind is not alone. Its partner, its counterpart, its greatest ally is water. Water is both a sculptor and a poet. It moves with rhythm, with grace, with patience beyond imagination. When rain falls upon the mountains, it seeps into cracks, flows into streams, and gathers into rivers that wind through valleys. Each droplet, each stream, each storm is a chisel in the hands of time. Rivers carve deep canyons, like the Grand Canyon, a vast wound in the earth's surface, carved not by violence, but by persistence. Raindrops break apart cliffs, snowmelt carries soil away, and waterfalls cut through rock like silk unraveling thread. Even underground, water continues its quiet labor. It dissolves limestone, carving caverns and tunnels deep beneath the surface, hidden cathedrals of stone and silence. And when water meets the sea, the waves take over. They grind cliffs into pebbles, pebbles into sand, and sand into dust. Each grain that touches the ocean floor was once part of a mighty mountain, and there, beneath the tides, it begins its journey anew. So, through rain, river, and wave, the mountains give themselves back to the world, slowly, beautifully, and without regret, because erosion is not destruction. It is transformation. The mountain becomes soil, the soil becomes life, and life, in time, becomes part of the mountain again. It is the endless breath of the planet, inhaling, exhaling, wearing down, building up, forever in balance. If you listen closely enough, you might hear it, the soft hum of erosion. It's in the rain tapping against stone, in the sigh of the wind along the ridges, in the trickle of meltwater finding its way home. It never stops. It never rushes. It simply is. For every mountain that rises, erosion ensures it will someday bow. For every peak that touches the sky, a river waits below to carry it away grain by grain. And yet, there's a deep peace in that truth. The mountains do not fear erosion. They welcome it, because through it, They remain part of the great circle of Earth's renewal. Their dust feeds the forest below. Their minerals enrich the plains. Their fragments build beaches where waves will someday sing. Even as they fade, mountains continue to give. Erosion is the mountain's way of sharing itself, not as loss, but as legacy over millions of years. A proud peak becomes a gentle hill, then a valley, then the bed of a river, and at last the shore of an ocean. But every atom, every grain of that mountain remains part of the planet's endless story. So the next time you stand before a cliff or canyon, know that you are seeing both the past and the future. The rock you touch once stood high above the clouds, and someday its dust will rest beneath your feet, carried by wind, kissed by rain, cradled by time. This is the breath of erosion, soft, constant, eternal. A reminder that everything changes, but nothing truly ends. And as you breathe tonight, feel your breath join the earth's. A quiet rhythm share with mountains, winds, and rivers. For in every sigh of wind, in every drop of rain, and in every moment that passes, the world is remaking itself beautifully and without hurry. Every mountain begins in darkness, not the darkness of the night sky, but the deep, pressurized shadow beneath the Earth's crust. There, far below our feet, the planet is restless, a molten heart of movement and heat. Tectonic plates shift, collide, and buckle against one another, and from that struggle a mountain is born. Sometimes it rises in a rush, as molten rock surges through the crust, spilling lava across the surface, layer upon layer, until a volcanic mountain stands tall against the horizon. Other times, it rises slowly, so slowly that no single generation will ever notice it. Continents push together, their edges crumpling like fabric, and over millions of years, fold mountains emerge. The Himalayas, the Andes, the Alps, all were born from this deep, steady pressure. A mountain's birth is not quiet. It is violent, molten, full of sound and change. But after the chaos, the new range stands proud, its peaks catching sunlight for the very first time. Snow gathers on their crowns, rivers spring from their slopes, and ecosystems begin to bloom along their ridges. It is as if the earth herself draws a long, satisfied breath and exhales creation. Every mountain, no matter how mighty, begins as a trembling in the deep, and that trembling, that rising, marks the first heartbeat of a giant. Once born, a mountain enters its long, quiet life, a life measured not in centuries, but in eons. It watches continents drift, oceans rise and fall, and species come and go. To the mountain, a million years is but a sigh. During this time, it stands tall and proud, its peaks piercing the clouds, its slopes hosting forests, glaciers, and rivers. Birds nest in its cliffs, snow leopards hunt in its shadows, and human beings, in their brief flicker of time, look up in awe and whisper of gods who might dwell there. Mountains shape weather patterns, divert winds, and feed the rivers that sustain entire civilizations. They become boundaries between countries, between climates, between heaven and earth. But even as they stand firm, the slow, gentle touch of erosion continues. Wind, rain, ice, and gravity begin to pull the mountain back down. Grain by grain, year by year, this is the middle age of mountains, a time of balance. still strong, still proud, but already yielding to time. The Himalayas, for instance, are still rising today, their tectonic roots pushing upward, even as wind and rain wear them away from above. It's a beautiful contradiction, creation and destruction occurring together in perfect harmony. The life of a mountain isn't about permanence. It's about transformation. And in that transformation, there's an ancient, silent wisdom. In the end, every mountain must bow. It begins subtly. Peaks soften, cliffs crumble, and valleys widen. What once stood proud and sharp becomes rounded, gentle, ancient. Eventually, the last of its sharp edges are gone. The mountain that once towered into the sky is now a series of low hills, then plains, then fertile soil beneath forests and fields. But this is not truly death. It's renewal. The sediments carried away by erosion are deposited elsewhere, in lakes, in deltas, in ocean beds. There they gather, layer upon layer, waiting patiently in the dark, and deep beneath them, pressure begins to build again. The Earth's crust shifts once more. The plates move, and slowly, inevitably, new mountains begin to rise. It's a cosmic cycle. Birth, life, decay, and rebirth, all played out in the language of stone. The ancient Appalachians, for example, were once as tall as the Himalayas. Now they are gentle, forested hills, quiet, dignified, their bones softened by time. And yet, the minerals that once formed their peaks are now part of new rocks, new landscapes, and even living things. The atoms of a mountain never truly die. They simply find new forms. Perhaps they become coral in an ocean reef, or part of a riverbed, or even part of the soil that feeds a tree. In this way, the death of a mountain is also the continuation of life on Earth. Mountains give, even as they fade, their slow surrender feeds the next chapter of creation. And so, in the grandest silence, under the endless sky, the earth whispers its oldest truth. Nothing lasts forever, but everything continues. The mountain falls, and the soil grows. The stone erodes, and the ocean gathers strength. And from that ocean bed, new peaks will one day rise again. So when you gaze upon a mountain, know that you are looking at something alive, not in the way a creature breathes, but in the way a universe dreams. For mountains do not merely exist. They become. There comes a time in the life of every mountain when change slows to a near stop. Erosion continues softly, gently, but the violence of creation, the rumbling of collision, the fire of volcanoes, all of it fades. What remains is silence, not the silence of emptiness, but of peace, the deep, resonant quiet that follows after a lifetime of storms. These ancient ranges, like the Appalachians, the Scottish Highlands, and the Australian McDonnell Ranges, have known this peace for ages. Their peaks, once fierce and jagged, are now softened into graceful curves. Their sharp edges are worn smooth by endless rain and wind. They do not fight anymore. They simply are, lying beneath the open sky. These old giants listen to the whisper of the wind through grass, to the slow trickle of water in distant streams, to the occasional cry of a bird, echoing across empty valleys. And in that quiet, the mountains become something beyond their own form. They become memory, a living echo of everything the earth has ever been. It's as though time itself takes a breath here, a long, slow inhale, and an even slower exhale. The calm that rests upon these ancient stones is not the absence of motion, but the perfection of balance. The earth no longer struggles to shape them, and they no longer resist. They simply exist, content in their stillness. If you ever stand upon one of these old, gentle mountains and close your eyes, you might feel that peace move through you, a reminder that every struggle in nature eventually becomes calm. The oldest mountains are more than rock. They are witnesses. They have seen oceans come and go, continents drift apart, and species rise and vanish. For millions of years, they have watched stars shift across the sky, and glaciers crawl over their sides like slow dreams. Imagine for a moment the same peaks standing firm, while civilizations rise in the valleys below, while fires are kindled, languages are born, and stories are told beneath its shadow. The mountain remembers none of the words, and yet it holds a memory of every sound. It has watched the first humans gaze upward, their eyes filled with awe and fear. It has stood silently through ice ages, and through warmth, and through everything in between. And when those humans are long gone, when the forests shift and rivers find new paths, the mountain remains. Even as it erodes, it keeps its quiet dignity. It becomes a part of the rhythm of eternity, the pulse beneath creation. Scientists can measure its height, its age, its mineral composition, but they cannot measure its patience, because mountains exist on a time scale beyond comprehension. They are what stillness looks like when stretched across millions of years. And in that stillness, there's a kind of wisdom, the wisdom of letting go, of not needing to move faster than the moment requires, the wisdom of being exactly what you are in the far future, long after we are gone, and long after the last glaciers have melted. The oldest mountains will continue to rest. They will crumble slowly, their stones carried by rivers, into the waiting arms of the sea. Those grains of rock, tiny, unassuming, will settle upon the ocean floor, and there, under pressure and darkness, they will begin the long journey toward becoming something new, another range, another rise, another breath of creation. And so the cycle continues, birth from pressure, life in light, death in silence, and rebirth beneath the waves. It is the universe's most peaceful rhythm. But even as these mountains fade into memory, their calm remains. When you lie beneath an open sky and feel the ground cool and steady beneath you, you are resting upon ancient bones, the remnants of giants that once reached for the stars. Their strength has not vanished. It has simply transformed into the soil that grows forests, into the minerals that form rivers, and into the quiet peace that lives in every stone you touch. The mountains may crumble, but their spirit endures, not in form, but in the unbroken calm of the earth itself. And perhaps that's the final secret of the stone giants, that their true greatness is not in how tall they once stood, but in how quietly they endure. Even when nothing remains of their peaks, their presence is still here, beneath our feet, within our world, and deep inside the heartbeat of time itself. So tonight, as your thoughts grow still and your breathing slows, imagine resting upon the shoulder of one of these ancient giants. Feel its strength beneath you, steady and eternal. Let the calm of its age wash over your mind, and the patience of its silence lull you to sleep, because the mountains are not just part of the earth. They are part of us. And as you drift away, remember this gentle truth. that even in stillness there is life, even in silence there is peace, and even in endings there are beginnings waiting quietly to unfold. Good night, dear dreamer. May the calm of the mountains stay with you, and may your dreams rise as softly as mist over the peaks. Sleep well, and goodbye,